So thanks for bearing with me through kind of our, hope it didn't sound like I'm whining of how complex it is to do flood risk analysis here in the Sacramento Basin. But I think there is a lot to learn from the analyses. I think, like I said at the beginning, that there's a lot of ways and creative ways to use HEC-FDA for more than just the Bear Creek watershed in the workshops. That it really is a powerful tool, and coupled with system hydrology, hydraulic models can really do a lot of detailed analysis and computation of flood risk and really overcome a lot of challenges. And so I do think it's worth talking a little bit about some of the keys to success and the lessons learned. I think number one is maintain maximum flexibility in developing the depth damage models. For example, don't build in the levee breach assumptions to the interior-exterior relationships. And sometimes it's easy to develop a channel watershed elevation damage relationship directly. Well, if you do that, you lose the ability to modify the fragility curve and the interior-exterior relationship as information and new information is developed over time. And so again, kind of keep the inputs consistent, but kind of modular in the analysis. I think it's important also to work cooperatively with other analysis. And so flood risk analysis really is the culmination of all the hydrology, hydraulic, geotechnical, the economists, all that work coming together. And so, you want to make sure that things are done in a consistent way. And so you can be consistent and you don't have to redo analyses. So again, it's want to work cooperatively, make sure that we're looking at common assumptions throughout the process. I think it's also important to account for future conditions and to be sure to look at the regulations closely. For example, we've got to make sure we follow the NFIP and local guidance. ER 1105-100 is clear about what you have to do and the details of the most likely condition and future conditions. I think the other thing that's really important with FDA and risk analysis is to really consider what questions are relevant. And we talked today about statistical lives lost, expected annual damage, learn about annual exceedance probability, conditional non-exceedance probability, that I think depending on the study, you don't always have to compute all those measures of risk. And so sometimes it is important to compute expected annual damage, but sometimes when you're doing, for example, a risk analysis to support a 408 study, looking at hydraulic impacts and transfer risk, computation of annual exceedance probability might be fine, and that does save a lot of time. I think the most important lesson I have really learned and taken away over the years is really look hard at the results. I always kind of like to say that EAD values need time to mature. That it seems like the first time you hit compute, get your expected annual damage or annual exceedance probability, it's almost always going to change as you kind of question. If you see a difference in EAD between alternatives, can you trace that back to a change? If you're seeing a change in flood risk, is it the flow frequency curve that's changing? Is it the levee fragility curve, the elevation damage relationship? And so I think it's really important to look careful at the results. It's easy to convince yourselves why they're right. But I think, again, there's a certain of, because it's the culmination of all the inputs from all the different analysis team members, it's really important to look hard and just question the results at first. It's important to account for the impacts of flood warning in your watershed. It's not necessarily always easy to account for the fact that there is a flood warning system, that there's an evacuation plans in place, but it is important to represent that in our analysis. And especially it's important so that support, in our studies, we're not looking at just structural, but also non-structural and improvements to the flood warning system. And so if we want to claim benefit for improving the flood system, we have to make sure we acknowledge the existing system itself. Again, I think it's important not to oversimplify cases with multiple sources of flooding. That is a huge challenge here within the Central Valley, where we have so many streams and levee systems that, to accurately account for flood risk, we want to make sure that we're accounting for the fact that you need to look at it as a system. You're not looking at just a single source of flooding, and to really accurately get the expected annual damage. And finally, don't forget about life risk and the life safety component. So thank you very much for spending some time talking about analysis of flood risk within the Central Valley, specifically the Sacramento Basin, and some of the challenges and the evolution of the modeling that we've gone through over the years. Thank you very much.